right. Arielle, welcome back to She Talks Business. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
I'm so excited to see you again. It's been a while.
It has, and so much has changed since the last time we talked, especially pertaining to your book. So I would love to just get an update from you on this journey you've been on with the Love Thief and what's taken place over the last little while.
Well, it took me 5.5 years to write the book. And then I decided to self publish it, even though I've always had a big five publisher. Because I've written 11 nonfiction books, I have no cred as a novelist. So I thought, well, I'll just self publish and I'll prove that there's a market for it. And then some big five publisher will find me. So the self-publishing journey was a nightmare. I'm not going to get into the details. KDP and Amazon made my life miserable, but I did sell a lot of books, and Hay House was sent the book by several of their authors who loved it, and then they showed up early this year and said, we want to put a new cover on it and bring it out in July. So that's the short version of what's happened.
That is awesome. So, I want to talk to you today about a couple of things. One, I want to talk to you about the book and this journey, but most of our listeners are business owners. So, I also want to talk to you a little bit about, pivoting and rolling with the punches when things are hard and not going well. So, let's start by talking a little bit about, what you're known for. You are known for your nonfiction work. So, what made you take the leap into fiction? And what surprised you the most about this journey?
Well, I never ever had it on my to-do list to write fiction. Just never did. Never occurred to me. Never was a thought in my head. And what happened was the book was inside of me, kicking and screaming to get out. It started to unfold in my head like a movie that wouldn't go away. And I kept going, I kept going, shh, shh, shh. No, 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 no. You don't understand. I don't want to write a number 12 book. And B, I don't know how to write fiction. I'm not going to write it. And yet it was persistent. And then one day, the first line of the book came to me and it said, my mother was right. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh dear, I know where this is going. And then as I'm seeing this movie in my head, I could see that a lot of the story takes place in Rishikesh, India, which is one of my favorite places. I've been to India many times. And the same day that I was noticing that, I got an email from masterclass.com. And it said, take a course with Dan Brown. Now, Dan Brown's one of my all-time favorite writers. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be fun to just hang out with Dan Brown on video and see what it is? And the course was called How to Write a Thriller. And I thought, well, I'm never going to write a thriller, but let's hang out with Dan Brown. So I signed up for the course, and video number 3 was location as a character in your book. So I'm watching this, and he's talking about how Florence, Italy became a character in the Da Vinci Code. And at the same time, I'm thinking, well, yeah, Rishikesh in this book I'm never going to write would be a character. And yet, so over and over again, I'm like getting all these signs from the universe and messages, you got to write this book. So I sat down and I said to God, okay, God, listen, if I'm really, really supposed to write this book, I need to manifest a business class ticket to India, which, at that time was about $7,000. And as soon as I said that, I felt such relief. And I thought, oh, that's never going to happen. Well, 2 days later...
You should know better than that.
But I was sure it wasn't going to happen, and I didn't even write it down. And a few days later, I ran into an old business partner, and he's like, hey, Arielle, how are you? What are you up to? Oh, not much. I'm thinking about manifesting a trip to India. And he said, well, when do you want to go? And I threw out a couple of dates, and he said, I'll take you. Last time we went to India, we had a blast. And so 48 hours later, I had the ticket in my hand. I'm off to Rishikesh. All the things I'm seeing in my head and imagining about this book, I'm tripping over. And I spent a week taking lots of pictures and lots of notes and and getting ideas, and came home and started writing. And it's a good thing I didn't know what I didn't know about writing fiction, or I would have never attempted it. So it took 5.5 years and a lot of freelance editors and book doctors and all kinds of stuff. And now I'm thrilled that it's done, and I hope to never do it again.
So I want to just ask you a question, because for those of you listening, this is Arielle's second time on the show. And if you go back and listen to the first episode, if my memory serves me correctly, the theme that we were talking about then was really kind of about abundance. And we had these conversations about all of these different things that you kind of manifested in your life. So can we take a little sidebar conversation, and can you just share for our listeners, what are some of the ways that you manifest great things in your life on a regular basis? Like, do you have a process or certain things that you do? Because this is not the first story that you've told me where it's like, oh, this will never happen, and then bang, it happens. And these things tend to happen fast.
Well, a lot has changed since we had that conversation. So yes, is there a process? And the process is really law of attraction 101 stuff. You get clarity. What is it that I want to manifest? And you write it down, and you share it with what do we used to call those partners?
Accountability partner?
Accountability partner, right? And you make a vision board, and you have affirmation. Like, I used to do all of that for everything, and it worked a lot of the time. But something really changed a few years ago when I started looking over the course of my life, which has now been, 7 decades. I realized that the biggest, greatest, most amazing stuff that's ever happened to me, I did not consciously manifest. They came at a time where I was at my lowest point, where I had no clue of what to do or where to go next. And I just threw up my hands and said, just show me the next step. And I was just in this mode of receiving and being grateful for whatever that next step was. And then now that I'm looking back, like for instance, when I manifested Deepak Chopra as a client, which was in the early 1990s, and we worked together for over 12 years, I never sat down and said, oh, I want to work with this guy because he was pretty unknown back then. How do I find him? That didn't happen. What happened was I was at this insanely low point, didn't know, my business was on the verge of bankruptcy. I had left a relationship. I had Epstein-Barr. My life couldn't have been any worse. But a friend of mine took me to lunch, and he said to me, if you could represent anything or anyone on the planet, because I was in PR marketing, who or what would it be? And that's when I popped up and said, oh, it'd be this guy. I'm sure you've never heard of him. His name is Deepak Chopra, and I think he's the next big thing. And my friend said to me, well, not only do I know who he is, my best friend works for him. So 7 days later, I met Deepak. He was 25 minutes late to our meeting. He walked in, and all he said was, I only have 5 minutes. I said, that's okay. I only need 1. He said, go. I said, if you're half as smart as I think you are, you'll hire me. And he said, deal. So did I manifest that? No, my imagination wasn't even big enough at that point to have dreamed up something like that. But I was at a place of not being ego-driven or willful, and just said, God, show me. And I could give you many other examples of that. So at this point in my life, I decided that I'm going to stop consciously manifesting. Like even this whole Hay House thing that happened, I had this nightmare of self-publishing, and even though I had sold a nice amount of books, I stopped marketing the book because I couldn't make stuff work right on the Amazon site. And I just threw up my hands and I said, okay, God, if this book is meant to have a second life, a big 5 publisher will find me. And that's what happened. I wasn't consciously doing affirmations. I wasn't writing down stuff for my partner to look at. I just surrendered and said, okay. So that's what's really shifted since then. And now I'm just at a point in my life where, what's next for me? I don't have a plan. I'm just sort of enjoying the breadcrumbs as they fall and being open and receiving what shows up.
It sounds to me, though, the thing that you do is that when there is an opportunity there, you step into it. So when this guy said, let's go to India, you didn't say, oh, no, no, no. Oh, I couldn't let you pay for that. Oh, I'm too busy. You said, okay. And when, Deepak walked into the room, you didn't have self-talk around why you couldn't help him. You were confident enough to take the next step. And I think that's a really important lesson for business owners. When I forget the title, Big Magic, by Elizabeth Gilbert. I remember talking to people about the idea fairy and how the idea fairy taps you on the shoulder and, you have to be serious about your idea. And so when you have this idea and something shows up, you have to dance with the fairy. You have to take the next step or the idea is going to go to somebody else. And so I think what I'm hearing you say is that you do a really good job of stepping into the opportunities when you see them, which leads me to my next question. I have been coaching and guiding business owners since I think 2007. So almost 20 years now. I started my own business in 2006 and I started helping other business owners in 2007. And I'm noticing a theme right now where people who have been in their business for a long time, they're really itching to do something different. And it's like they're hanging on to what they have, but they're trying to reach for what they want, but they're afraid to let go of where they're at to fully step into where they want to go. And you have done this by stepping into a whole new genre of writing this book. What advice would you give business owners for giving themselves permission to maybe release themselves from what they feel they should do in order to step into what they feel they most want to do?
Yes, I totally get that because I've done it many times now. And there was always a point in which I knew I was done with something. On every level, I'm done. And I also believe deeply that the universe abhors a vacuum, that I needed to create the space for what's new or what's next to fall into, which means taking this gigantic leap of faith to shut down what that was, to whatever that is. Like I shut down 2 different businesses overnight with no plan B because I just knew it was time. And the what's next didn't come the next day. Sometimes it was a month, sometimes it was 3 months. But when it came, it was so clear to me that had that opportunity shown up before I had shut down the last thing, I would have said no. I'll just give you a quick example. When I shut down my PR firm, I think it was at the end of 2004. And part of it was that my husband said to me, if you don't stop this, you are going to get very sick and I'm afraid you're going to die. He literally said those words to me. And I knew I was right. I knew he was right. And so I did it. And it was terrifying. I hid under the covers for the first month. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to survive this? And then one day, Gay Hendricks called me. And Gay was somebody I kind of knew, but not really. And I live in San Diego. He lives in Ojai, so it's a good 3-hour plus drive. And he said, I want you to come to Ojai and have a meeting with me. I have an idea for a startup. I want to tell you all about it. Well, I don't have an office to go into, so Brian and I drive up there. We sit down. He tells me this insanely brilliant idea he has for a thing that was then called Spiritual Cinema Circle. And he wanted me to come in and bring in my millions of personal growth, self-help, spiritual authors to be affiliates to this new DVD club. And I was able to say yes, even though he said to me, you're not going to get paid until the company starts to make money, but you're going to own stock, you're going to be a partner, and when it works, you will benefit. So it was this big, big, big risk. I dove in. 90 days after we started, we were up and running at a profit. And 3 years later, we sold the business for $6 million.
It's amazing.
Now, I did not get $1 million, but I did really well, right? But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't listened to my my inner wisdom, which was get out and get out now. So I don't regret it. It was hard every single time. It was hard. It was scary, and I don't regret any of it.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about the bridge, because I think that, whenever we make these shifts, we bring something from where we were to where we're going. So how did your background in writing about relationships and spirituality help or hinder your ability to write this book?
Yes, and when I started writing, I don't have an MFA in writing. I never read a book on how to write fiction. As far as I was concerned, since I was such a good nonfiction writer, I would, of course, be able to write fiction. And then I discovered very quickly that the only thing that fiction and nonfiction have in common is they both use words. Other than that, there's just no relationship. But what happened was, I was able to create this hero in my book, and his name is Deepak, although it's just because it's the most common name in India, and I like it. It's not Deepak Chopra. And he, in the book, dispenses all the wisdom I've ever learned or read or studied to help my heroine heal from the tremendous betrayal and trauma that she suffered. So I was able to, use years and years and years of being a student of love and bring knowledge and wisdom and spirituality in through the back door through my characters.
So can you talk to me a little bit about heartbreak? And what makes you think that heartbreak is, like, what makes heartbreak such a powerful catalyst for transformation? Because I see, like, I mean, we love reading, stories where the character has something bad that happens and then, something good happens after, like the hero's journey. We all love that. And I think that there's also a similar kind of path that happens in our lives. And you've just talked about that. Sometimes when you're at the worst time in your business, then the best opportunity shows up. So why do you think heartbreak is such a powerful catalyst for transformation?
Well, for most people, not all, but I'd say the majority of people, it's a common occurrence. You leave somebody, they leave you, or circumstances happen, and you end up with a broken heart. In this case, it's through betrayal. Somebody's cheated on you. And I personally don't know any woman who hasn't been betrayed by somebody somewhere. And one of the reasons betrayal is so hard to get over is because you really, truly love this person, and you really believe that they love you. And now they've done something that is just unfathomable, and you can't understand what happened. And there was a woman, she just died this year. I always blank out on her name. I'm not going to remember her name. Anyway, she's a very famous biologist, and she studied the biology of love and taught at Rutgers University. And she said that getting over heartbreak is harder than getting over a cocaine addiction.
Wow.
So imagine when you do get over it and you heal yourself enough to be open to new love. I don't know anybody who's been betrayed who doesn't say after they found new love, as painful as that was, I'm glad that it happened, because I wouldn't be with him or her today had I not suffered and experienced the past.
Right. You describe moments of mystical inspiration guiding the story. Can you share one of those moments from the trip that you took to India?
Yes. So this happened, I don't know, 2003, 2004. We were on a tour through India with Deepak Chopra and some other friends, and he took us to this place in the state of Tamil Nadu. We were 6-hour drive from the closest town. We were in a forest in a cement block room with a priest who didn't speak any English but could read ancient Tamil, and a translator named Babu who spoke what I call Hinglish. And they had these palm leaves that were written 5,000 years ago. And on the palm leaf was our Akashic records. So this priest would read these little, like, look like hieroglyphics on a palm leaf and tell me my entire life history, including
Wow.
my name, the names of my parents, my date of birth. He did, and all he had to find this leaf was my left thumbprint. He didn't have my name. He didn't have my date of birth. None of that information. And this was really pre-internet Google days. There was a light bulb, one single light bulb hanging from the ceiling. There was no fax machine, no computer, just this leaf. And so I was told not only about my past of this life, my past of past lives, and
Wow.
something coming up in the future. And it was utterly mind-blowing. So in the book, Holly, my heroine, has this experience to get information she's wanted her whole life, and it's life-altering for her.
Wow. That's so cool. Can we talk a little bit about karma? So, karma plays a big role in the story that you wrote. What do you believe about karma in real life?
You know, it's kind of changing right now. I used to believe, what goes around comes around, and whatever you did in your past life is going to follow you into this life, and you have to make amends. And to some extent, I believe that, but karma is so damn slow.
Sometimes it is. I agree.
There are people and things happening right now in this world that are what I would call evil. And they don't seem to be being punished for their evil deeds. And it's like, come on, if I did 10% of one of those things, I'd be locked up somewhere. And yet these evil people are getting away with it. So I don't have solid beliefs right now about karma. I believe there is such a thing as karma. I'm hoping that karma does her job, and I'm hoping I'm still alive to see it happen. And if I can participate on a revenge level, I would like to do that. But yeah, it's a great question, but I don't have the answer.
That's funny. When I think of karma, I always think of like good and bad. Like I think that there's positive karma out there too. That when you do good things, it comes back to you in different ways. And maybe I've got the definition of karma wrong, but I like to think that karma rights the world in a good way and in a bad way. And sometimes the way it comes back to you isn't the way you expect it to, but I believe it always comes back. I know, for me personally, in May, I had to go to Halliburton to spend a couple weeks with my mom. She was in the hospital, and I have to tell you, I felt like I must have done some good things so far in my life, because the people that showed up to help me and to check in on me and to just do great things for myself and my mom, they were, I don't want to say a complete surprise to me, but in some cases they were a complete surprise. And so I learned some powerful lessons about not having expectations of who should show up for you in life, and being open and grateful to the people that do show up. So anyways, my
Yes,
little
thank you
sidebar on
for
karma.
noticing that, because you're right. I actually also do believe that when you do good, it does come back to you in very fulfilling ways quite often. But then there's that line where no good deed goes unpunished. So maybe life's just a mystery, and I'm at the point where I've stopped trying to figure it out so much, and just stay in the present moment, and be grateful and happy for what is showing up. And even if it's stuff I don't like, I've lived long enough to know that this too shall change, and nothing lasts forever.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of comfort in that, where I can just keep having fun in the moment and not terrify myself with the what ifs.
Yeah. So back to the book. What do you think the biggest myth is that women believe about love, and how do you hope the love thief helps to dispel that myth?
Well, one of the deep dialogues that Holly and Deepak have in the book is what is love? Because so many people are clueless about what love is. They think mostly love is a feeling. And while there are good feelings to love, my understanding is love is a choice. It's a behavior. Oh, it's so much a behavior. It's a decision. It's an action. It's a way of being. And when you're in the state that we call being in love, that's just a great drug high. That's your brain on drugs, on adrenaline and oxytocin and dopamine. But it's with a stranger. You don't even know this person. And you're claiming, oh, I love you so much. But that's not love. That's what I like to call the socially acceptable form of insanity. But real love is about, taking your time to get to know somebody and having shared values and being with somebody that you can feel emotionally and physically safe with. Somebody who will take a bullet for you, who really has your back. And there will be days when there are no good feelings about it. And it doesn't mean that you don't love them and they don't love you. But if you're constantly looking to your feelings as to how you're going to behave with your supposed love of your life, you're going to be miserable.
Yeah. It's funny, I remember when I think we both spoke at Peggy's event, and it was when your Wabi Sabi book had come out. And I bought your book and I bought your little digital program, and there were some people in the room looking at me because I was married at the time. But I was like, just because you're married doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep learning about how to make your relationship strong, right? Like, to me, if you love somebody, you're invested in doing what's right for that relationship, like on an ongoing basis. And I think, for so many of us, we invest in learning about our businesses, but we don't necessarily take the time to invest in our most cherished and important relationships. And I think we should.
Well, the whole point of Wabi Sabi love is to learn how to love the beauty and perfection in yourself and others, especially the person you're spending your life with. Because people are annoying, and as most women understand now, there's no way to make a man change. They do not change. But what you can do is change your story about what they're doing, and you can also in is in my book, Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. I do actually have dialogues in there for women to use to get to modify their behavior. So there are ways. I was telling somebody yesterday, just like there are really good solid ways to train dogs and dolphins, there are really good solid ways to train husbands so that they're happier. Okay, it's about their happiness. They're happier and you're happier. So, of course, I think everybody needs to read Wabi Sabi Love.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this new, this new, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even think of it. This new big piece of news that the Love Thief is being developed for a streaming series. Can you talk to us about that? Tell us about that.
It's going nice and slow. So I have this top producer named Suzanne Todd, and Suzanne did all the Austin Powers movies and Bad Mom movies and Johnny Depp and Through the Looking Glass, and she's, her films have earned $3 billion. And she read the earliest pages of The Love Thief and fell in love with it and committed to getting it into a streaming series. But then we had the writer's strike and then the actor's strike. So, of course, nothing happened, and we're a year out of that. And it's just slow because first she has to find the right screenwriter, and that's a slow process. And then once the screenwriter's in, Then we have to go meet with Netflix and Apple and Prime. So it's not happening quickly, but she's very committed to it. And then another producer called me last week, and he was very excited about it. So someday it'll be on your TV or on your phone or your iPad or wherever you're watching stuff, all three. And I'm super
It's so
excited
exciting.
about it. So I haven't actually been, doing old manifestation techniques about it. But what I have been doing is imagining being on location in Rishikesh with the film crew and how much fun that's going to be when I'm a producer on it.
That is so, so exciting. So exciting. Like I can't wait for that to happen for you. Like
Oh, thank you.
I think it's just remarkable to see. I mean, I met you, gosh, I think it was probably 2008, 2009, like it was a long time ago. And so to think about, I spoke at your 21st century book marketing event way back then. And to look at, what you've done since then and how this book has unfolded, it's remarkable. It makes me so happy for you.
Yeah, my life keeps turning out in ways I never ever expected. I just wrote this whole piece for Father's Day about my dad, because I realized that I'm a Nepo baby, which I would have never believed before. Because when I look back at where, when I got out of college and the jobs that came after college, he got me every one of those jobs. He would pick up the phone and call. He actually got me into college. I was a terrible student. I literally flunked out of junior college. And then went back and managed to finish the 2 years, but with like a C average. And I wanted to go to University of Florida, and there's no way I had, the grades to do it. And I told my dad, and he said, "Oh," he goes, "when I was in law school, I was friends with the guy who's now the dean. Let me give him a call." And he called the dean, and he got me probation, and I became a gator. So who knew how it was all going to turn out? And it's so fun. And I got some really good news yesterday, which I'll share with the older women who are watching this. They've been saying for years that that once you're 70 years old, you're pretty much definitely a senior citizen. Well, now there's this new study, I forget who did it, some big name company, and they're now saying that if you're 70, it really is the new 50 in terms of longevity and life expectancy. So now I'm a midlifer again.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Listening to you talk about your dad just makes me really think about the power of relationships, right? So your dad was able to do that because he had relationships, and so many of the opportunities that have come up in your life are because of the relationships that you have formed. And I think that, right now I'm doing a lot of work in my business, helping people with AI and helping people understand how to optimize their websites for AI and how to use AI and how to create, custom GPTs for marketing for AI and all of that. And at the same time, I keep kind of reinforcing that, belly to belly, heart to heart, eye to eye relationships, in-person relationships will never go out of style. Like those are the things that matter so much in anything that we do in
I
life.
have a list right here that I keep making notes on from my godson, who's 22. And of course, he's an AI genius, and he's used to working alone by himself, isolated, and he has mental health issues that have been addressed. I'm going to write a piece for him about how important it is to get a job where he has to show up and meet other people, even though it's not going to be his dream job. The importance of learning how to operate as a team with other humans, how to network, how to make friends, how to be able to actually, put yourself in society, and how those relationships will eventually pay off. Even if he does become an entrepreneur, you have to build these now, because I know I moved from Miami to Florida at 30 where I didn't know anybody. So, of course, the first thing I did was I did get a job, but then I started doing volunteer work, and then I started my own nonprofit, and I built my own board, and I'm still in contact with most of those people that I knew back then. And I would say my greatest strength is my ability to make friends and keep friends and network. And you just can't do that alone on the couch by yourself.
No, you
Well, I'm
can't.
right
Nothing
there
beats
with
in
you.
person. Yeah, nothing beats in person. That is for sure. All right. I want to be respectful of our time. I have one last question for you, and I'm sure it's something you have been thinking about. If you could cast the two main characters in your series, who would you choose and why?
At I would cast Margot Robbie as Holly.
Love her.
And I'm trying. I can see the guy's face that I want, and my memory's just so bad I can't think of it. He's a great actor. He was just in this series with Nicole Kidman, 10 Perfect Strangers. He was in season 1. He was the bad boy. So I actually have, what do you call that? A lookbook of locations and pictures and their pictures on it, that I made a couple of years ago. But yeah, I could totally see Margot Robbie being Holly.
That's so fun. Awesome. Well, Arielle, thank you so much for spending time with us today. I love the correlation between how you went from, basically writing personal development books to now, writing a fiction book. And I love the stories that you've shared with us about, manifestation and just great things happening to you when you least expect it. And the courage that you've demonstrated in knowing when to stop doing something. Because I think, for our listeners, we often hang on to things for too long. And, I know in my own business, there's been a lot of times where I've just kind of cut the cord and said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. And people always look at me and they're like, yeah, but that was like, $250,000 in your business. I'm like, I don't care. It's served its purpose. It's done. It's over. There's something new around the corner. And so I think this has been a great conversation, not only about your book and, your streaming series, but also about life in general. So thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining us
thank you.
today.
Thank you. It's always great to talk to you, Lisa.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much. And for those of you listening, I will make sure that this episode has all of the links that you need so you can buy the book and you can connect with Arielle and you can, we'll publish as soon as we know more about the streaming series. It might be in a couple of years. I'll make sure that we let everyone know and that we come back and update this. So thank you for listening to this episode of She Talks Business.